Shredder is in the house. He's a radical rat. Yeah, you're not the leads. Go to sleep, bitch. Go to sleep. Look at the
drum. Where's that from? Casey Jones. Keep up and rock steady.
Get a grip when evil Shredder attacks. These turtle boys don't cut him no slack. The fight is over. Shredder is dead. Turtle power!
Oh, that needs to happen. You see that video? That video is why you now pay $900 for RAM in this country. Good morning, pineapples. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to The Wake Up. Exactly, Drew Van Runkle. AI is good again. We hate AI. We love AI. AI giveth. AI taketh away. Click that like button. Today's Wednesday, February the 11th, 2026. You're tuned to the only broadcast brave enough to tell you that the sovereignty of the individual is the only cure for the plague of collectivism. Wake up, America. How are we doing? I've written a stacked 6-cylinder high-octane show that's going to shake the foundations of the administrative state from Manhattan to Havana. Oh, Havana, he's a real modest guy, even though he's the hottest guy in Argentina. Today we're going to start in the frozen graveyard of New York City. Get a rope. Where Democratic Socialist Mayor Zohram Mamdani has turned the Big Apple into an Arctic gulag.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
We have the Norm. All right. Careful with the F-bombs this early, Norm. So I've got the bombshell data from the New York Post showing that 96% of pleas to help the homeless during the deep freeze went unanswered. 18 people are dead. We're deconstructing the rotten core of a bureaucracy that can track your taxes but can't find a dying man in the snow. We're going to examine the handful of homeless New Yorkers who died in the bitter cold because Mamdani's NYC didn't provide help in 96% of 311 calls during the freeze. Communism always promises to help the poor, but in the end, they only help themselves, don't they? Yeah. Then we are declaring victory on the regulatory front. President Trump officially repealing the Obama-era Endangerment Finding. This is huge. God bless President Trump. Retrieving $1 trillion from the climatist bureaucracy. So this is the largest act of deregulation in U.S. history, and we're telling the EPA that their reign of scientific tyranny is over. It's over. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We're also diving into the belly of the beast to expose the cultural Marxist roots of the green monster. We're linking the anti-natalist lies of the left to the radical terror groups of the 60s, exposing the sick paradox of a movement that tells you not to have children while importing millions of foreigners to prop up the state. At 8 a.m. Central, the judge is in the building. Ain't no question Mr. West is in the building. Hopefully not. Sieg Heil. Judge Anna Napolitano joins us to warn of the constitutional ice age and the paramilitary rise of ICE agents bristling with weaponry at the United Nations. We're challenging the judge with tough questions on border sovereignty and natural law that only this show, the Wake Up America show with Austin Peterson, can ask. And in our epic finale today, we're going to preview the final fall of the Castro regime. Cuba is grinding to a halt under a total U.S. oil blockade. And we're casting shade all over the bloody legacy of the Castros and Che Guevara. But more importantly, we're announcing the For Liberty Network's newest weapon, our weapon, in the fight for the hemisphere. Cafecito Libre starring Mylian Salabarria. We are bringing the chainsaw-wielding libertarianism of Javier Milei to the United States to finally tell the casta, afuera, afuera. Keep an eye on that. Join the most dangerous community in liberty in the United States at forlibertynetwork.com. Make donations with Rumble Rants. Help me unlock the bonus content today. Help you unlock the bonus content today. If we raise $100 today, you're going to see our mini documentary that we produce fresh and hot for you, but it only unlocks if we raise $100. You can make a Rumble Rant donation. My recommendation to you is if you have never tried Founding Flavors Coffee, Jeffersonian Java, Thomas's Painkiller, Washington's Revolutionary Roast, are you insane? Franklin's Electric Elixir alone is such a good batch of coffee that you will come running back to me. You will be begging me. You will slap me across the face and say, Austin, no, you take my money. You take my money. No, take my money. You haven't tried it. What's going on? Go to forlibertyshop.com. Fuel the revolution and fuel the fight for liberty with Founding Flavors Coffee at forlibertyshop.com. While you're there, don't forget to kiss the sweet, cute little redheaded libertarian girl. Kiss her. I'm libertarian, she says. If you go to forlibertyshop.com and you get yourself this cute little four-leaf clover shirt, then a redheaded libertarian will be delivered to you in your pot of gold. Boy or girl. Your choice. So head to forlibertyshop.com, throw a couple boxes of coffee and a Kiss Me I'm Libertarian shirt in there, and we'll get that bonus content unlocked lickety-split. Oh, says I. Rise and Freedom America. It's Wednesday, February the 11th, 2026, and we are starting the show with a harrowing look at the frigid graveyard of the radical left. Wake up, America. While the elites in the Mamdani administration talk about equity and the workers struggle, 18 human beings just went to their eternal rest because they literally froze to death on the streets of the Big Apple. The data is in, and it is a stain on the conscience of every central planner in New York City. Not that they're going to take responsibility for anything publicly, right? 96% of pleas to help homeless New Yorkers during the recent Arctic deep freeze led to absolutely zero assistance. 96%. That is not a gap in services. That is a systemic collapse of the socialist experiment. The city received 1,183 complaints, and in 72% of those cases, city workers couldn't even find the individual reported. Communism always promises, remember, to protect the poor, the worker, but in the end, they only protect the bureaucracy. They can find you if you miss a tax payment. They can find you if you forget a permit. But when a man is dying in a snowbank in one of the most populated cities in the world, they can't even be bothered to map the coordinates. Wake up, America. This isn't just incompetence. This is a biological reflex of the administrative state. The city medical examiner testified yesterday that at least 15 of those 18 deaths were directly caused by hypothermia. We're not talking about being out in the middle of the Atlantic on the Titanic and, it's going to take hours to get here. We're talking about responses that are inhuman. We're talking about sub-Antarctic chills gripping the city, and Mamdani's administration is grilling outgoing commissioners while people are literally turning into ice statues on park benches. The city council revealed that 250 times during the deep freeze, rescuers left people outside because the person refused services. Okay, they took no for an answer from people suffering from mental illness and severe cold. That's not respecting autonomy. That is negligent homicide. Milton Friedman warned us that if you put the government in charge of the Sahara Desert in 5 years, there would be a shortage of sand. Well, in New York City, they put the socialists in charge of compassion, and we have a shortage of survivors. The mayor repeatedly claimed all calls would go to 911, but it took 2 weeks to redirect those calls. Time is of the essence when lives are on the line, but bureaucracy always moves at the speed of a glacier. We need a reality check from Thomas Sowell, who said that socialism in general has a record of failure so blatant that only an intellectual could ignore or evade it. Look at the case of Frederick Jones, 67 years old, found dead a mile from his own supportive housing apartment. 3 calls were made to emergency responders about him wandering the frozen streets hours before his death. The cops responded to the first call. He waved him off. On the second call, they couldn't find him. By the final call, he was stiff in the snow outside a supermarket on 3rd Avenue. Jones was under a court-appointed guardianship because he couldn't care for himself. Yet the system that he trusted left him to perish in the cold. This is the result of the, quote, last resort policy, where Mamdani refuses to involuntarily remove people from deadly chills unless the threat is imminent. Newsflash, if the mercury drops below zero, the threat is permanent. We are witnessing the deadly consequences of replacing common sense with ideological purity. The Thatcherite warning. Margaret Thatcher told us the ultimate truth. The problem with socialism, eventually you run out of other people's money. And New York City, they ran out of other people's care. Take the 90-year-old Brooklyn woman who wandered from her apartment in Parrish, or the Queens man found dead on a park bench with his hospital discharge papers still in his hand. These aren't statistics. These are souls. Mamdani's enhanced code blue was stuck in a 311 bureaucratic loop while the body count was stacking up. The city has billions in federal funding for these services, but where is the accountability? The mayor pretends his hands are tied, but the previous administration got the law changed specifically to allow for the removal of vulnerable people in life-threatening situations. Mamdani chose to ignore that power. He chose to implore rather than protect. As Thatcher would say, compassion is not measured by the depth of the treasury, but by the effectiveness of the action. And by that measure, the administration of Zohram Mamdani is bankrupt. Yuri Bezmenov warned us about the ideological subversion of our cities, and New York is the epicenter. They're trying to replace the NYPD with clinicians while the streets turn into an Arctic gulag. Now, while Mamdani dodges blame, he's going to push bills to replace law enforcement with unarmed outreach workers who clearly cannot even find the people they're supposed to help. What are we going to do when 96% of the social workers aren't able to find the people whose jobs whose lives they're supposed to be protecting? What happens when 96% of kids filed with Child Protective Services go missing? Right? This isn't about fixing homelessness. It's about normalizing the chaos so the state can accrue more power. In 72% of cases, the workers can't even locate the dying. They're great at tracking your move through data, right? If you haven't paid a tax bill, they will find you. They can't locate a dying man on a well-lit street corner after there were 3 phone calls. The demoralization is complete when the citizens begin to believe that these types of deaths on the street are inevitable. It's not inevitable. It's not. This is the direct result of gaps in outreach and an infuriating refusal to budge on involuntary removal. There's a reason we're talking about bringing back the asylums. If you took all the money that you gave to this administrative state, it's like these administrators, these school administrators, they're making hundreds of thousands, they become millionaires, and they can't afford coloring books or like crayons or they can't afford basic supplies in public schools. And the administrators, the teachers who get paid almost nothing until they retire, the teachers are paying using their own money. They're doing GoFundMes to raise money for supplies. And the administrators are getting rich. If you took the money that you gave to these stinking bureaucrats, if you took it away from the administrators, who will manage it? Who will manage it? And just put the homeless people into a nice, warm facility. Yes, involuntarily. Yes, involuntarily. You'd save their lives. They'd be away from society where they wouldn't have to be in a situation like this anyway. They could go live amongst other people who are like them and maybe get some treatment, maybe get some kind of help. But no, socialists don't really care about helping people. They want to enrich themselves at the rest of us. The taxpayer is going to foot the bill for the funerals. We finish this block with the verdict from Friedrich Hayek and the road to serfdom. The state cannot plan for individual survival. It is true. Because imagine if the state wanted to do this for all of us. The state, of course, does not value individual life, right? They just care about what brings in more tax dollars. I declare, bankruptcy, the socialist experiment in New York City, dead in the streets. The only solution, rule of law, the courage to call out the negligent homicide masquerading as compassion. 18 New Yorkers should be alive today. They are dead because of a failed mayor, a broken bureaucracy, and a last resort policy that put ideology above human survival. We're witnessing the final stages of the ARCTIC GULAG, where the government is so large it covers everything but protects no one. They should demand an independent inquiry. Quest Fanning, get on it. More importantly, we must demand an end to the communist delusion before the rest of our cities turn into frozen wastelands of neglect. Wake up, America. The arena is calling, and the truth is the only thing that can thaw the heart of this nation. Love the Arctic Gulag, LOL, says Urs Mommy. Urs Mommy, what's happening? It's great to see you again. We missed you. Let's diverge for a minute. I saw two roads. They diverged in the wood. I took the road lesser traveled. We're going to talk about some of the most recent revelations from the Epstein files regarding Donald Trump. But before we do, click that like button. Let's do it. Let's get as many likes on this feed as we can. Click that like button. And if today's your first time watching the Wake Up America show, click the follow button as well. We'd love to have you be a regular guest. We'd love to have people like Urs Mommy and Drew Van Runkle and Cecilia H. and many others joining us here live on the Wake Up America show 5 days a week. Right, guys? Urs Mommy, I think she moved to the Arctic Gulag, the actual one. Rise in Freedom America. We've got the ultimate smoking gun. And I don't know how to think about this story so much more because everybody talks about Trump and the Epstein files. But you know what? Let's just start with a clip.
This morning, a new document coming to light claims in the mid-2000s, President Trump called police about Jeffrey Epstein. Among the 3 million Epstein files released by the Department of Justice last month is a 4-page FBI report on an interview the Bureau conducted in 2019 with the man believed to be former Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Ryder. Ryder and his detectives began investigating Epstein for human trafficking in 2004. According to the document, Trump called Ryder around that time and said, "Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this." Ryder also says Trump said he threw Epstein out of his club and he was around Epstein once when teenagers were present and Trump got the hell out of there. The former police chief says Trump told him to focus on Epstein's associate Ghislaine Maxwell, saying she is evil.
Did you have any suspicions that he was molesting young women, underage women?
I had no idea.
Trump has long denied having any knowledge of Epstein's crimes, but Ryder says Trump was one of the very first people to call when people found out that they were investigating Epstein.
Wake up, America. For years, the left and conspiratards, many, tried to paint Donald Trump as a co-conspirator in Jeffrey Epstein's sick empire. But the latest batch of unsealed FBI documents released just yesterday, February the 10th, 2026, has turned that narrative into dust. Congratulations, Mr. President. Joni, I agree with the egg. There's a lot of egg. So the FBI interview with former Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Ryder, private citizen Donald Trump was actually one of the first people to call the police to cheer them on for investigating Epstein in the mid-2000s. The documents quote Trump telling the chief, "Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this." He didn't just call to congratulate them. He gave them a warning. He told the police to stay focused on evil Ghislaine Maxwell, calling her Epstein's operative. Trump told the chief that people in New York knew Epstein was disgusting, and he admitted he was around Epstein once when teenagers were present, and he, quote, "got the hell out of there." That is not the portrait of a co-conspirator. It is the portrait of a man who ratted out a predator before it was cool. Nice. Good. Get out of there, Mr. President. Way to go. Afuera. Wake up, America. This new evidence backs up what Trump has been saying since 2019, but the media called it a MAGA fantasy. Trump has long maintained he threw Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago back in the early 2000s once he realized that the financier was a creep. The recently released Ryder interview confirms this, revealing Trump told local police back in July 2006 he had banned Epstein from his club. Compare that to the less reaction over the last decade. They took a 2002 quote where Trump called Epstein a terrific guy and used it to smother the fact that he completely cut ties by 2004. The falling out wasn't just over a real estate dispute or over a $41 million mansion. It was because Epstein was stealing staff from the Mar-a-Lago spa and harassing the daughter of a club member. Trump called him persona non grata and banned him for life. While the rest of the elites, like Noam Chomsky and many others, were still collecting frequent flyer miles on the Lolita Express. Now, not all of everybody in the Trump administration is safe. Howard Lutnick himself is having to answer some tough questions over in a Senate hearing yesterday.
To lunch on his island, but it troubles me that you took your family to lunch on his island, that you had appointments with him. Please disclose everything. Put this to rest, because this is an issue of grave concern to my constituents. President Trump ran on releasing the Epstein files. You said casually, well, I looked at my name and how it appeared in them, as does everyone. No, everyone isn't worried about their names being in the Epstein files. I know he was your neighbor. That was a coincidence. But please disclose everything that's relevant here so that we have a chance to work together and move on.
To the best of my memory, I met him when he moved next door to me, and I met him 2 other times in 14 years. None within 6 years of that first meeting, and then a year and a half later, and none thereafter. And in the presence of my wife, and as Senator Van Hollen said, under no circumstances is there a single word that I've done anything remotely wrong in any possible regard. I did not have anything you could call a relationship, anything you could call an acquaintance. I literally met him 3 times over 14 years with widespread in between. That's all I can remember. That's all there is in the documents. I didn't look through the documents with any fear whatsoever.
Lutnick's having to answer some difficult questions in the Senate hearing yesterday. Wake up, America. While the media was obsessed with photographs of Trump at parties in the 90s, they conveniently ignored the words of the man who actually represented the victims. Bradley Edwards, the attorney for over 200 Epstein survivors, revealed on the record that Donald Trump was the only famous person, who voluntarily called him to help with the investigation back in 2009. Edwards said Trump didn't treat the allegations like a hoax. He treated them like a crime. Trump literally signed the Epstein Files Transparency Act in November 2025 to force his own Justice Department to release the records. Would a guy with something to hide sign a bill mandating the release of 5 million pages of evidence? Of course not. Trump knew these files would prove he was the one trying to stop the machine while everyone else was lubricating the cogs. That's why he could easily have vetoed that bill. Wake up, America. The media's hypocrisy is reaching a fever pitch as the truth comes out. On January 21st, 2026, the House Oversight Committee voted to hold Bill and Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusing to testify on the Epstein affair. Bill Clinton's name appears repeatedly in the newly released files, and we're talking about flight logs that show him on the jet at least 26 times. And you think he didn't know what was going on? Yet the media spent the last 48 hours trying to spin a 9-year-old clip of Trump saying Epstein was terrific, as if it trumps 20 years of Trump rat trapping. Trump even admitted Monday at Mar-a-Lago he hated to see the reputations of innocent people ruined by the photo dumps, but he told the DOJ to give them everything because he has nothing to hide. He's calling their bluff, and guess who's running for cover? Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, Howard Lutnick, and who else? Noam Chomsky. It's a parade, a carnival of horribles. We have to talk about Ghislaine Maxwell, and we'll do so in just a second. We appreciate all of our viewers and listeners. Don't forget to click the like button. If today is your first time watching the Wake Up America show, we'd love to have you be a regular guest. When you click the follow button, you'll get a notification whenever we go live. When we go live, it's 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Our friend Urs Mommy, she says, oh, she can't get behind the, excuse me. Yikes, the VPN. Yeah, we get a lot of fraudsters from that area. I'll bring down the VPN for you here in just a moment, and then you can hop in, and then I'll put the firewall back up after the show. So forlibertyshop.com, we use blockers. Not everybody's a kindly fruit like Urs Mommy, is she? Oh, she's I. Although when you can visit forlibertyshop.com, once you get past the fraud blocker that I have set up, then head on over and grab yourself not only a couple of boxes of Founding Flavors coffee, but set yourself up at forlibertyshop.com with a beautiful Kiss Me, I'm Libertarian shirt, fresh off the presses. Stephanie just designed this one. Very cute shirt with a 4-leaf clover. Head over to forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4, libertyshop.com. When you visit forlibertyshop.com, you can see all of our wonderful merchandise, including our FAFO collection, FAFO stickers. The latest product drops are always there on the front page. I also really like the Gun Store Romance t-shirt. I enjoy long romantic walks through the gun store. And I was kind of saying, fellas, what would it be like if Valentine's Day was about us? I just took off Russia as a blocked country for you there, Urs Mommy, so it might take a few minutes for the servers to populate, so try again in just a few minutes. Sound good? Let me know. Okay, wake up, America. It's time to talk about Ghislaine Maxwell, the evil operative that Trump warned the police about 2 decades ago. So while the media portrayed her as a socialite, Trump was telling Police Chief Rader to focus on her because she was the one running the show. Trump saw that the dynamics of the ring before the FBI even opened their permanent file. But in 2025, MAGA influencers were divided on the piecemeal release of these files because the DOJ was heavily redacting the very pages that vindicated Trump. Well, now we know why. The bureaucracy was trying to protect itself, not Trump. They didn't want you to see the documents showing the future president calling in tips to local cops. It turns out that the whistleblower that the left has been waiting for was sitting in the Oval Office all along. That's why they didn't want that information out. It makes perfect sense. It turns out the whistleblower was Donald Trump. So we're going to finish this mega block of a discussion about Epstein is a total vindication. The documents released in January 2026 prove beyond a shadow of a doubt Trump was the first to rat, the only one to help the victims' lawyers, and the man who finally broke the seal of the secrecy while in the White House. The left is reeling because their ultimate smear has backfired and 1,000 conspirators are about to lose their grift. Good. This story is a tragedy, but it is one of the most dishonestly produced, dishonestly talked about stories in American journalistic history. Trump called the entire scandal a Democrat hoax designed to deflect from his success, and he's right. The real story isn't who was in a photo at a party. It's who had the guts to call the cops when the party got creepy. We're witnessing the Great Awakening where the protectors of the swamp are exposed and the man they tried to bury is the one holding the shovel. Rise and freedom, America. Rise and freedom. The truth is out. The files are open. Trump's the one laughing all the way, hopefully to the ballot box. It is an election year after all. This is a Democrat hoax that never ends.
Says he doesn't think you're implicated in these files, but many of your friends and donors may be, and he says that's why the Justice Department is redacting them and slow-walking the release. Is the Justice Department protecting any friends or donors, sir? So this is a Democrat hoax that never ends. You know, it reminds me a little of the Kennedy situation. We gave him everything over and over again, more and more and more, and nobody's ever satisfied. From what I understand, I could check, but from what I understand, thousands of pages of documents have been given, but it's really a Democrat hoax. It says he doesn't think you're implicated in these files, but many.
It was never my intention to brag, but I called it. I called it the whole time. I'm a libertarian nationalist. I love my country. I love America. I try to be a patriot. I consider myself to be patriotic. I tend to think of the label patriot as something that should be gifted you from other people. So I don't try to say I'm a patriot per se. Someone else wanted to call me a patriot, right? It's kind of like saying you're pretty, right? Or your mom thinks you're pretty, right? No, it's not like that. Steelbringer gifted a sub. He stepped in to help unlock the bonus content. Methinks mommy once she's able to access the grift shop from the Arctic Gulag, the literal Arctic Gulag. Her and Vladimir Putin searching my website. Read my manifesto on libertarian nationalism. If you have read it, I'd love to hear your thoughts, your feedback on it. It's just gotten such a tremendously positive reaction to people that I speak to. And I have spent almost 2 months now in the bunkers making phone calls to people who have read the manifesto, just prospecting, talking to people about what we can do to actually implement these ideas. I have a plan. I'm working on that plan. And what are you doing to help further the cause of liberty in the United States? Patriotism is a credential that probably needs to be renewed for most of us. I think it's important for us. So someone the other day, I'm sort of, I guess you might be involved in some personal drama regarding someone that I knew long ago who said, Austin, I used to take a bullet for you. And now, they don't like my turn towards nationalism. It is a libertarian nationalism, but they're very disappointed with me on my views on immigration, which they say have changed. And yet when I confronted them and said, have you read my manifesto? Or I think I said something to the effect of, I've changed my mind on a few things. They accused me of taking paychecks from Israel, which at that point, you're dealing with a very feeble mind. And that if you can't have a discussion or in good faith, then I usually just, might leave a biting, witty retort and then move on. But it's time to put away old childish things, and it's time to take up the sword and the shield of libertarian nationalism. It's time. It's time to work together to fight for the principles and the ideals we love. You know who's a patriot? I'll call him out right now. Quest Fanning of Brooklyn, New York. He's a patriot. Are you letting a New Yorker be more patriotic than you? Barney Stiles, patriot. Joni Rankin, patriot. I see him over there this morning. Joel Ledamore, super patriot. Cecilia, mega patriot. All of these patriots, I see him. If you're hanging out over on rumble.com/AP for Liberty, hang out in the chat. We all know each other. We're a tight-knit group, and it's a really friendly, healthy community. That's what we're building at the For Liberty Network, is a very powerful, healthy community of freedom fighters, people who love their country, people who believe in liberty, but who know that liberty needs to be defended with a sword and a shield. Jesus said, if you do not have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. Take off your shirt and pull out your sword. Jew money, says Joni Rankin. It's $5. It's not $2,000 checks from Jews. I'll tell you that. Vlad Putin, those pesky Ukrainians in their place, says Quest, and he dropped in $1. It's a very patriotic buck. If you talk loudly about patriotism, put your money where your mouth is. Bless me with something.
Bless me with something.
Like Cecilia did.
Money-wise. Please.
Can you suck it?
Let's unlock that bonus content. What? Let's unlock the bonus content. How do we unlock the bonus content? Go to forlibertyshop.com, make a purchase during the live show, like our Kiss Me, I'm Libertarian t-shirt. Try a box of our delicious Founding Flavors coffee while you're there. Check out all the amazing merch at forlibertyshop.com. Read the Libertarian Nationalist Manifesto while you're there. Join the movement. Join the For Liberty Network. You don't have to be like Cecilia and donate. I get it. Not everybody has cash. I speak to a lot of people who are like, I'm down on my luck. I would love to help. You know, when you click the like button, when you click the follow button, or when you're dropping a comment over in the chat, that's a way for people, for the community of supporters to give, not just with their wallets, but not everybody can give with their wallets. I get that. I'm not some grifting e-girl. What, you don't have $5? No, I get it. I've been at points in my life where I was like, I don't think I have $5. You know, I've been there. I didn't grow up with money. I get it. But if you're a true patriot and revolutionary, you'll at least click that like button today. It's time to celebrate. Rise and freedom, America. We're going to shift gears now from the Arctic Gulag of New York City to the brightest beacon of prosperity we've seen in a century. Wake up, America. While the central planners in Manhattan are letting people freeze, the Trump administration is busy setting the American economy on fire in the best way possible. I love this story. The Wall Street Journal just dropped the bombshell. President Trump is officially repealing the landmark 2009 Endangerment Finding. This is not just a policy tweak. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin calls this the largest act of deregulation in the history of the United States. So what we are talking about is about removing the entire legal basis for federal greenhouse gas regulation. For 16 years, this pseudo-scientific anchor has been dragging down our industries, choking our car markets, and raising your electricity bills by design. But today, the anchor is being cut. The administration estimates this rollback alone equates to more than $1 trillion in regulation cuts. $1 trillion. That is wealth. Our wealth returned to the people, retrieved from the clutches of the evil climate cult. Yes. Wake up, America. What is the Endangerment Finding, and why should we be dancing on its grave? In 2009, the Obama EPA issued a decree claiming that greenhouse gases posed a threat to public health and welfare. So that single legal determination gave the bureaucracy the power to regulate virtually every aspect of modern life under the Clean Air Act. So this was the skeleton key for the administrative state to unlock unlimited power over power plants, vehicles, and industrial facilities. So by repealing this finding, the Trump administration is systematically dismantling the legal weaponry that has been used to deindustrialize America. The final rule removes requirements to measure, report, certify, and comply with federal emission standards for motor vehicles. We're talking about an average savings of $2,400 per vehicle. So the climate alarmists claim that they're saving the planet, but as Milton Friedman said, if you want to see capitalism in action, go to a country that doesn't have it. We're bringing capitalism back to the energy sector and telling the bureaucrats their reign of scientific terror and tyranny is over. Sic semper tyrannus. Booyakasha. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. It's time to wake up, America. We have to understand that high energy costs are not an accident. They're a choice. The radical left wants energy to be scarce and expensive so that they can control your behavior. But the Interior Secretary Doug Burgum said it best yesterday. More energy drives human flourishing. So the Trump doctrine is simple: energy abundance. We're not regulating certain forms of energy out of existence to please the elites at Davos. Drill, baby, drill. We're going to pump, we're going to mine, we're going to burn our way to prosperity, damn it. So the administration is launching a campaign this week to target some of the high living costs head on because they know that electricity prices are a primary concern for every hard-working American. I mean, that's a significant part of our monthly budgets, right? They're reversing the narrative of scarcity that has dominated Washington since the 1970s. So we are replacing the environmental defense fund mentality with the American industrial defense mentality. So Trump is proving that national security is rooted in energy security, and energy security is rooted in freedom from unconstitutional mandates. Huzzah! Huzzah, I say, huzzah. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. I'm Austin Peterson. Click that like button. Wow, we're really getting along and unlocking the bonus content this morning, especially thanks to Urs Mommy. Urs Mommy, you rock. You rock. That's what the old sensei used to say at Jefferson City Parks and Rec Karate. But guess what? There's a new karate instructor in town. And you know what we say in Austin Peterson's Japanese karate dojo? We say, os. Otherwise, you shut up and train. Bow to your sensei. Fear does not exist in this dojo, does it? No, sensei. If you're ever in Central Missouri on a Wednesday night, come and join me for karate classes, martial arts in the style of Okinawan and Japanese traditional karate. A little Goju-Ryu, little Shotokan, a little Kempo, a little and a lot of Kyokushinkai karate. Ultimate truth. If you're ever in Jefferson City, Missouri on Wednesdays, make sure you reach out to me, AP for Liberty. Let me know you're going to be in town. Come out and take a free first class from the Jefferson City Parks and Rec if you're interested in signing up for class so I can beat you senseless. Especially if you have little kids. Kids classes start at 5:30 p.m. and then at 6:30 p.m. right after I lead an intensive cardio blast, baby. You're going to learn... I'm not going to take you down to Chinatown. I'm going to take you down to the Ryukyu Islands. We're going to Okinawan, baby. Naha. You're the best around. Nothing's going to ever keep you down. Okay, Austin.
Why are you gay?
Just play football, right? Just play football. Watch Super Bowl. Watch Bad Bunny. Don't do karate. Wake up, America. Tomorrow, the president is set to be awarded the Undisputed Champion of Coal Award, which I find hilarious. And he's earned every bit of it. Coal, it's like Dwight Schrute from The Office. He was the straw king. Trump needs to go around with like a hat with coal, big bricks of coal in it, and says, coal for everyone this year. And we're all just like, yay. They're like, oh, you're getting coal for Christmas. And we're all like, that shit's worth money. Trump will be signing an executive order directing the Defense Department to buy electricity from coal-fired power plants. So we're talking about recommissioning and upgrading facilities in West Virginia, Ohio, North Carolina, and Kentucky. This is what I voted for. Energy Secretary Chris Wright says this effort's vital to meet our artificial intelligence goals. No, I know what you're saying. No. I love AI. Get over it. He just likes kicking children, says Barney Stiles. It's true. Do you want to win the tech war against China? You need power. Massive amounts of steady, reliable, coal-powered energy. Clean coal. AI data centers consume vast quantities of electricity, and you can't run the future of the world on weather-dependent windmills. I'd love to build nuclear, but that's going to be next on our regulatory overhaul. What do you guys say? Should we build some more nuclear power plants? Let's do it! Coal, nuclear, oil and gas, all of the above, solar, everything, right? Let them all compete, right? We're ensuring that America remains the global hub for innovation while simultaneously stopping the rise in electricity prices, creating good-paying jobs here in America. This is a 2-for-1 special on freedom and tech supremacy. So the Tennessee Valley Authority is even expected to vote to keep coal plants running that were slated to be destroyed. So the war on coal is over and the coal miners won. America won. Yes! 10 till 8, Judge Napolitano joins us live in 10 minutes. Wake up, America. Predictably, the same attorneys general who are letting people freeze in New York are absolutely losing their minds over this little deregulation. So Keegan and Ellison and the rest of the coalition of the cringe claim that this violates Supreme Court precedent and endangers millions. They are wrong and they are panicked. They are freaking out, man. You are freaking out, man. I'm freaking out. The snozberries taste like snozberries. California, speaking of snozberries, is already threatening to enact its own radical standards to circumvent the federal government. They want to remain a regulatory island, driving up the cost of cars for everyone else. But the Supreme Court has already signaled that the major questions doctrine limits the EPA's ability to re-engineer the entire economy without clear congressional authority. Trump isn't just cutting red tape, he's restoring the separation of powers. He's telling the states if they want to bankrupt their own citizens with green mandates, that's on them, but the federal government will no longer be their enforcer. So the Environmental Defense Fund says we're steering towards dirtier air. But we know we are steering towards a dynamic, wealthy, and clean tech future powered by prosperity. Capitalism will solve this problem. So let's finish this block here in this conversation. We've had some amazing, the first hour, 50 minutes. I don't want to pat myself on the back too much, but if you've been here the whole time, drop an American flag in the chat. UNOG, you've been here since 7 a.m. Central Time. You've been sticking around through 50 minutes of awesome freedom-fueled monologue. God bless you. God bless your children. Good luck to you and your family. So let's finish this block, this hour, I would say this is a declaration of victory. Let's declare victory. Take the win. Let's take the dubs. Take the dub. This rollback is an ultimate act of sovereignty. It is the recognition that climate change has been used as a pseudo-religion to justify the total control of human movement and consumption. As Isabel Patterson would say, the state has no wealth of its own. It only has what it takes from the creative energy of the people. By removing the endangerment finding, Trump is returning that creative energy to the market. We are moving from a nation of employees afraid of the EPA to a nation of owners, building the future. This is the Trump speed scroll of progress. It's literally $1 trillion of freedom. We're telling the world America is open for business. Our factories will hum, our minds will open, and our families will flourish under the radiant light of cheap, abundant, American-produced energy. The road to serfdom has been blocked, and the road to the American century is wide open. Rise in freedom, America. The revolution is here, and it's powered by coal and common sense. Hell, let's do it anyway. Rise in freedom, America. We're diving into the belly of the beast today, pulling back the curtain on the greatest bait and switch in human history. The radical left has swapped the hammer and sickle for the windmill and the solar panel, but the goal is exactly the same: total control over the human spirit. We're talking about cultural Marxism, rebranded as environmental justice. It began in the 19th century with Engels and Marx theorizing about the alienation of man from nature. But by the 1920s, the Frankfurt School realized that the American worker was too wealthy and too free to ever embrace a bloody proletarian revolution, so they pivoted. Marxists decided to attack our culture, our values, and our very right to exist in the physical world. They moved from class warfare to civilizational warfare, and they found their perfect weapon in that environment. If they could convince you that the very act of living, breathing, and producing was a crime against the planet, they could justify the total regulation of every second in your life. It is the sordid tale of the green monsters who want to turn this shining city on a hill into a primitive gulag of scarcity. Wake up, America. This is not just libertarian theory I'm spouting. This has a bloody, violent history. The bridge between the radical communists of the 1960s and the green extremists of today is built on the ashes of bombs. Look at the Weather Underground. This is the radical offshoot of the Students for a Democratic Society. These were Stalinist revolutionaries like Bernardine Dorn and Bill Ayers, who declared war on the United States government. So when their dreams of a communist overthrow stalled, their disciples moved into deep ecology. They gave birth to groups like Earth First and the Earth Liberation Front, the ELF, which the FBI once labeled the top domestic terror threat in America. We're talking about arson, sabotage, and tree spiking, designed to kill loggers and destroy industry. So these are the villains of our tale. The radicals who believe that a bulldozer is an act of war, but a bomb is an act of liberation. They traded the red flag for the green one, but their heart is still pulsing with the same totalitarian hatred for Western civilization that lifted billions out of poverty. Wake up, America. We're now witnessing the most sinister chapter of this saga, the war on the American family. So the green monsters have convinced an entire generation that the most natural, beautiful, and sovereign act a human can perform, having a child, is actually an ecological sin. So this is the rise of anti-natalism, a philosophy of death that tells you a newborn baby is nothing more than a carbon footprint of 58 tons of CO2 per year. So they've turned children into liabilities and the planet into a jealous god that demands human sacrifice in the form of unborn generations. From the voluntary human extinction movement, yes, that's a real thing, to celebrities sobbing on camera about climate anxiety, the message is clear. Stop reproducing for the sake of the earth. Stop reproducing. This is a Malthusian death cult that would make Thomas Malthus himself blush. Right? They want an America that is cold, lonely, childless, because a nation without a future is a nation that is easy to govern. Wake up, America. Here is the jaw-dropping paradox that exposes the whole scam. So on Monday, the left tells you not to have children because the planet is overpopulated and dying. But on Tuesday, the same bureaucrats tell you we have to have open borders and import millions of foreigners because our demographics are collapsing and we need new taxpayers to fund the Social Security Ponzi scheme. So do you see the sheer audacity of the lie, right? They want to replacement the sovereign, independent, native-born population here with a transient, dependent, and easily manipulated mass of voters. They tell you your child is a pollutant, but 1 million unvetted illegals are a humanitarian necessity, right? It's not about the environment. It's about the deconstruction of the American nation state. So they are using climate change to guilt you into biological suicide while they open the gates to this unending stream of new labor to prop up the very administrative state that is strangling us. Right? It's a twisted game of demographic chess where the American family is the pawn being sacrificed. The heroes in the arena versus the Malthusian bureaucrats. Wake up, America. Every tale of horror needs heroes, and the heroes in this fight are the people that the left hates the most. I'm talking about the parent who defies the narrative and raises a large, happy, freedom-loving family, like Cecilia and me. Getting there. I'm talking about the industrialist who defies the EPA to build the factories that power our lives, or the coal miner and the oil rigger who stand in the arena every day to ensure that we have cheap, abundant energy that is necessary for human flourishing. So the villains in this story are the Malthusian bureaucrats like Paul Ehrlich, who predicted mass starvation in the 70s, and of course, it never came. Remember, there was going to be a global ice age, and it never came. But he's still treated, Paul Ehrlich, like he's a prophet by the radical left. The heroes in this story are the realists like Julian Simon, who proved that the ultimate resource is not land or oil, but the human mind. Humans are not a plague on this earth. We are the stewards of it. The fight against the green monsters is a fight for the right to be human, to live, to be productive, and to be free from the lifeboat ethics of the elites who want to decide who lives and who dies based on some computer model. The green agenda is nothing more than red Marxism with a vegetable dye.
But it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
All right, it's time to go to Judge Andrew Napolitano. He says that it's an ice age is coming, but it's an ice age of constitutional fidelity. If you unlock that bonus content in less than 1 minute, it's $5 more will do it. I'll play the commercials I'll play the, we did it. There you go. Enjoy the mini documentary. We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America show, guys, on the For Liberty Network.
Jimmy Lai got a 20-year sentence for saying things. The Chinese government didn't like China's national security law, was perfectly tailored to zero in on someone like Lai, who vigorously pushed for democracy, freedom of speech, and government reform in Hong Kong. There's a reason Thanksgiving predictably gives way to yearly advice columns on how to placate the crazy uncle who somehow finds a way to make mashed potatoes political. In the US, criticizing the government is a national pastime, whether in polite conversation, on social media, or across the dinner table. In China, meanwhile, it can amount to a life sentence. Such is the case of Jimmy Lai, the 78-year-old Chinese political dissident who was sentenced on Monday to 20 years imprisonment following his conviction last year on 2 counts of conspiring to collude with foreign forces and 1 count of publishing seditious material. That rap sheet sounds ominous. It is, but not in the way it reads. The portentous language of the charges masks that he was ultimately found guilty of exercising a basic right, railing against the state. There is no shortage of material in China for government critics. That helps explain why, in 2020, the mainland imposed a national security law on Hong Kong, where Lai made his home. He was arrested that same year. The name of the legislation is again deceptive, as it used national security as a guise to paralyze dissent, especially as some in the city sought to hold on to the liberties that once distinguished Hong Kong from Beijing. Lai was at the forefront of that fight. It is genuinely difficult to think of anyone whose story more clearly epitomizes both the promise of Hong Kong and what happens when that promise is broken. At 12 years old, Lai escaped to the city as a stowaway on a fishing boat after his mother was sent to work in a labor camp for the crime of being a class enemy. He slept in rat-infested factories as a garment worker, until he was the one running them. His sweater brand Giordano became an international success and helped make Lai a billionaire. Following the 1989 pro-democracy showdown in Tiananmen Square in Beijing, Lai founded 2 media companies, Next Magazine in 1990 and The Apple Daily in 1995, known for their irreverent coverage and unapologetic support for democracy, freedom of speech, and government reform. China's national security law was, in other words, perfectly tailored to zero in on someone like Lai. The government leveraged it to freeze assets at the Apple Daily, arrest other employees, and eventually shutter it entirely. Prosecutors alleged Lai spearheaded a conspiracy to secure sanctions or blockades against China and Hong Kong, referencing meetings he had with U.S. officials like Vice President Mike Pence and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Authorities obtained a conviction on the 3rd count, publishing seditious material, using colonial-era legislation to argue that Lai's publication incited people to rebel against the government. Beyond the charges themselves, that national security law also paved the way for a trial with a foregone conclusion. Calling it a trial at all feels like a bit of a stretch, as it had no jury and was instead overseen by a panel of judges handpicked by the government. Nor was Lai permitted to pick an attorney of his choosing, which the Constitution there supposedly promises. All in all, the proceedings came amid a long-standing, ruthless pursuit of the businessman and activist, who was already serving a nearly 6-year sentence on flimsy fraud charges pertaining to a sublease for part of his newspaper office. But for those who still doubt that Lai was targeted for his political expression, consider that he has company. Former Apple Daily Editor-in-Chief Law Wai Kwong, Executive Editor-in-Chief Lam Man Chung, and English Edition Managing Editor Feng Wai Kong received 10-year sentences. Young Ching Qi, an editorial writer, received 7 years and 3 months. Associate publisher Chan Pui Man got 7 years. And CEO and publisher Chung Kim Hung was handed 6 years and 9 months. This, unfortunately, isn't new. There are many others who have received draconian punishments for offending the Chinese government. Lai had an advantage, however. He is a citizen of the United Kingdom, meaning he did not have to do this. He did not have to wait for law enforcement to come and take him, which was essentially guaranteed. And yet he continued to speak out against the government with the same vigor as those whose greatest risk is an unpleasant dinner.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack.
She's not just talking, she's taking culture back, with sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama!
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian, and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemical...
When the Founding Fathers dreamed of liberty, they forgot one thing: coffee. Introducing Founding Flavors Coffee, the brew that built America, and the brew that's fueling a new revolution, one kitchen at a time. Small batch roasted, Patriot approved, and disappearing faster than a redcoat at Yorktown. Don't get left behind, soldier. Real patriots are starting their mornings with Founding Flavors. And trust us, freedom tastes better with a fresh cup in your hand. Stop drinking those tyrant brews who take your money.
Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. Well, we spent the morning talking about the sovereignty of a nation or of an individual, but none of that matters if the supreme law of the land is treated like a dead letter by the people who swore an oath to protect it. We are seeing a might makes right presidency that recognizes no legal or moral limits abroad or at home. From unilateral war making in Venezuela to the systematic disruption of the Fourth Amendment, the imperial bureaucracy is pushing us towards a constitutional crisis, says Judge Napolitano. ICE agents, authorized by a divided Fifth Circuit in the February 6 Juan Rostro Menendez ruling to arrest whomever they suspect without a judicial warrant mimicking the infamous writs of assistant that triggered the American Revolution. So the era of the administrative warrant, where one agent authorizes another to search wherever he wishes and seize whatever he finds. My next guest says the government cannot be trusted to evaluate or restrain itself. That's the whole point of divided government. And the judiciary has essentially abandoned its post. Excuse me. Joining us now, senior judge, judicial analyst, Fox News, formerly a former Superior Court judge in New Jersey, the man who taught me almost everything I know about liberty, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Good morning, Judge.
Oh, good morning, Austin, and God bless you.
Thank you. Sorry. Apologize there.
Judge, in more ways than one.
Of course. Judge, you recently met an ICE officer at the United Nations carrying 2 handguns and you say an AK-47 who told you that soon ICE will be everywhere. What did you take away from that?
Well, this was passing informal conversation. I recognized him. I believe he had testified before me or worked in the courthouse where I was a judge when he was working for the state of New Jersey, and now he was an ICE officer. And I said, "Oh my goodness, how you doing?" Blah, 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 blah. And I said, "What is ICE doing here?" When he told me he worked for ICE, I was about 2 blocks from the UN at the time. He said, "Well, Judge, ICE is everywhere." And I said, "Why are you dressed like you're about to go into battle?" I see 2 handguns and I see an automatic weapon, literally automatic. So if he held the finger down, a fusillade of shells would come out. Such a weapon is illegal everywhere in the United States of America, even for law enforcement. And I said, "What's becoming of ICE? Are you guys some sort of a paramilitary entity at the disposal of the White House?" And he just sort of smiled. But this was 5 or 6 months ago in October. So this is before everything in Minneapolis, before the murders of Renee Good and Alex Preddy by ICE officers. And it only came to mind the other day when I was reading this horrific decision by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. One of these judges is a friend of mine. She's obviously not happy with what I wrote about it. But this decision is in utter defiance of the Constitution, particularly the Fourth Amendment. Madison and company feared what we now have. One law enforcement official authorizing another to conduct a search or an arrest. The whole purpose of divided government was to preserve individual liberty and insert a neutral judicial officer between what the government wants and the government's target. The concept of an administrative warrant, originally crafted to address civil wrongs, like not shoveling the snow on your sidewalk or filing your taxes too late. These are not crimes, but they're civil wrongs. Now has morphed into a in the Fifth Circuit anyway, which is Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. It has morphed into a substitute for the Fourth Amendment. Can the courts do this? Of course not. Can Congress do this? Of course not. Only the states could do this by amending the Constitution. But the Fourth Amendment is the whole reason we have a United States of America. It protects the quintessentially American right to be left alone. This right no longer exists in Texas, Louisiana, or Mississippi.
Judge, help me understand a little bit what you were saying earlier. So, as you know, I'm not a lawyer, but there is one aspect of the law that I have spent an inordinate amount of time studying, and that is firearm law. So, you identified the rifle that he is carrying as an AK-47. So, I've been following the tactical evolution of federal gear ever since Ruby Ridge. So, were you using that term as a rhetorical shorthand for the militarization of domestic police, or were you?
Well, yeah, I was. I mean, I didn't actually.
So
he would never let me do this, nor would I want to. I didn't pick up the weapon and look at it. It might have been an M16, but it was an odd M16. It was definitely something that would be difficult for a civilian to obtain, but I know it was automatic.
Well, it's not that difficult for a civilian to obtain. There is a permitting process, and actually the Trump administration recently rolled back that $200 tax stamp. So now more and more people are filing for these types of firearms potentially, but you said that this gun was illegal even for law enforcement to carry. If it was an M4 style variant, definitely not an AK, but if it were an M4 style variant, police carry those kinds of firearms all the time. So what do you mean when you say it's illegal?
The regulations from 1934 prohibit the use of automatic rifles, that is, those which, when you pull the trigger, the magazine is emptied. Pull for each shell. That's what I thought he was carrying, which is something that troops carry into combat. The NYPD doesn't carry it. Even the FBI agents don't carry it, as far as I know, and I'm almost certain they don't. Secret Service don't even carry it.
I think they do. I'm pretty sure the Secret Service, they carry submachine guns. As a matter of fact, with that famous picture of Ronald Reagan when he was almost assassinated outside the White House, he was shot by a .22 from Hinckley, but there's a famous photograph of the Secret Service agent carrying I believe it was an Uzi, which would have been that Israeli variant.
Yeah, well, the government doesn't care whether it violates the laws or not. The purpose of my recounting the conversation was not to criticize the weapons he was carrying, although he really was heavily armed. And then he told me he had weapons on him that I couldn't see, whatever. But to address the ubiquity of ICE before they had been descended on Minneapolis and other cities.
Yeah, I just was curious because, I track firearms law a lot. The Trump administration itself has this recent rule of the moving of the $200 tax stamp, that was created from the 1934 was this FDR's, the National Firearms Act, the original one. Was the one that placed that $200 stamp. Well, at the time, $200 was a lot of money because they wanted to keep guns out of our hands.
Right.
But nowadays, now Trump has even repealed that. So now, Pete, you can file for this certain permit on the federal level. If you wanted to receive as a civilian a fully automatic rifle, or what you were describing there as a select fire rifle, then you'd have to achieve a manufacturer's permit for the modern weaponry. But remember Ronald Reagan, his 1986 bill, which he signed, which was related to modern firearms. The 1986 gun law that Reagan signed made it so that citizens couldn't buy select modern firearms that were manufactured after 1986. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. So I'm curious because when you said that initially that the agent had an AK-47, I was thinking like this is Hal Turner Diaries kind of like 1980s style. Like this is like, I thought that they were just like Chinese communists who were running around pretending to be ICE agents holding these AK-47s.
Well, listen, I've seen a lot of scary things in my career as a judge and in my living in New York City, but I have not seen officers walking around the streets with what he was carrying, and why immigration and customs enforcement would be hanging out in front of the UN dressed for storming a building is beyond me.
Got it. Yeah.
And nor did he want to tell me. And I knew this guy, we used to interact in the courthouse when I was on the bench. He wasn't a stranger to me, nor was he adverse to me.
Interesting. I know you've got some incredible stories, especially in your books, which I highly recommend. It looks like I was also incorrect. Someone reminded me that tax stamp, which is, just this year lowered to $0, that does not apply to transferable machine guns. That only applies to silencers or suppressors and short-barreled rifles. So thank you for that correction on that one. Now, Judge, I know that you, unfortunately, we got a little late start, and I know that you have to run soon. Do we have like 3 or 4 more minutes so we can talk about this? Okay.
Sure.
So, Judge, the SAFE Act bans assault weapons for you and me, right? Police and agents, they're duly authorized to carry things like this. But I want to talk about these ICE agents specifically, how they're operating. When you talk about an administrative warrant, So I posted the clip of you and I talking about this last week, and because I'm not a lawyer and you know more about this than me, help me to understand the difference between the administrative warrant and the judicial warrant, because some critics said that the administrative warrant is allowable because the Fourth Amendment itself does not specify what type of warrant, but that it requires a warrant itself. So are you arguing that an administrative warrant is invalid because it doesn't involve a separate branch of government?
Correct. It doesn't. It doesn't comply with the Fourth Amendment at all. There's no limitation on the Fourth Amendment. I don't know who told you of this. There's no limitation on it. There's no judicial opinions upholding any limitation on it. The government wants to arrest you for violating a federal law that is a federal criminal law. You rob a federally insured bank. The government, unless the government watches you committing the crime, they have to go and get an arrest warrant from a judge, not from another federal agent. That's pretty basic, and that's been the Fourth Amendment since it was ratified in 1791.
Judge, who do you have coming up on your excellent show, Judging Freedom, reached by millions of people around the world?
I have two of my superstars today, Scott Ritter and Professor Jeffrey Sachs, both of whom are predicting an imminent, non-congressionally authorized war on Iran, the purpose of which is to topple the Iranian government. How Trump could do this without getting a declaration of war manifests his indifference, antipathy, and even antagonism toward the Constitution. I guess I should throw in ignorance as well.
Judge Andrew Napolitano joins us live every Wednesday on the Wake Up America show. Download his show, Judging Freedom, buy his books, a New York Times bestseller, A Man Who Influenced Me to Be True North. Judge Andrew Napolitano, Judge, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Austin. All the best to you, my friend.
And you as well.
I have the distinct honor to be able to come before you and say I actually lost white population in my community. I lost them. They left. I didn't ask them why. They left. So if you see 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 whites in my neighborhood, they're passing through. But that's on a serious note. We got 13,000 black elected officials in this country. We've had mayors, we've had governors, we have city council members. We need to get radical. I have the distinct honor to be able to come before you and say I actually lost white population in my community. I lost them.
Why are you celebrating?
They left. I didn't ask them why. They left.
Can you imagine if an elected official got up in front of a crowd and said, I lost black people in my community. They left. I didn't ask them why. Woo! They left our community. Thank God all those Chinese got out of the community. Things were looking pretty grim there for a while until the Mexicans moved out. Rise in Freedom America. It's Wednesday, February the 11th. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show. We're on the For Liberty Network. We've unlocked phase 1 of the bonus content. God bless America. Except for those white people. If you are like me and you are a little knowledgeable about firearms, you might like my I enjoy long romantic walks to the gun store shirt. Itchy McGroin says, doing good, keeping it real. You have style and knowledge, good enough to mention any limited knowledge you may have. This is why me and many others watch you. Yes. Peter the Great says, did good, AP. The judge clearly knows nothing about GATS. Yeah, I was a little sus when he was talking about when he called it an AK. When you name a gun like that to me specifically, like I'm going to have some questions just because I really like guns. So when the judge is like, a UN agent with AK-47s, I'm like, I mean, he just kind of sounds like, I don't know. Like, that's how libtards talk about guns. Don't be like that. Come on, judge. You know better than that. And I was like, are ICE agents getting like brand new spec'd out, scary looking AK-47s? If so, I might just sign up. Just quit this whole podcasting business. Go get me one of those skull masks, you know, and look like Call of Duty, and get me an AK-47 with like a nice scope on it, you know. My AK-47 is like the old style variants. You can't even put a scope on these, on mine. Should have done my homework, but I was in a rush. Judge Fudd, says Ashley. Yeah, that kind of FUD. If you're like me and you enjoy long romantic walks through the gun store, head over to forlibertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. Check out some of our newest product drops. She enjoys long romantic walks through the gun store at forlibertyshop.com. And when you go to the front page, you're going to see it. Kiss me, I'm libertarian. Good morning, pineapples. Feds rolling around like ballers with AK-12s, wearing Adidas tracksuits, dropping Slav squats left and right. Yeah, when I read the judge's piece and it said that they were carrying AK-style guns, I immediately was like, investigative AP goes on. I'm on the search, right? So I'm just like, which federal officers carry Russian-style variant rifles? And I'm like, ICE, does ICE carry them? And it's like, no, they carry the M4 variants, right? Short barrels, M16, right? The M4 short barrel variants. And I'm like, if they were carrying AK-47s, it's like that must be some kind of interesting new like revolution in warfare. Maybe like, how are they getting these guns? And the judge is like just saying, oh, it's an AK-47 because it looks scary. AK-47s don't need scopes. They're not meant for long-range shooting. You know, St. Selma, I think you're right, but in a pinch, I mean, when you're using an AK-47, like every once in a while, like I understand like it's really for that, like kind of like that mid to short range combat situation, right? But if you want short range combat, get a submachine gun. But every once in a while, I like a rifle that's going to be able to reach out and touch somebody if I want them to, right? So I might want to put an AK-47 scope and then have the ability to kind of like go between the scope, right? Maybe you get one of those scopes that you tilt it, boom, and then on the side you've got your like red dot, right, or your iron sight. So you've got range if you need it. But I want one of those. Will somebody please buy me like a $2,500 AK-47, a modern one that's all tricked out with a really nice scope and like a side scope mount, please, please, please. Pooty is sending them AKs. LOL. You know that's not true. Listen, sonny, back in my day, ICE agents only carried single-shot shotguns, and they did just fine. I know, right? So boomerific, so boomertastic. The Wake Up America show is building a network, a powerful network of people who are committed to the fight for liberty. Mongoose87, have we ever spoken on the phone, dude? Peter the Great, Nathan in the chat, Itchy McGroin, have we ever had a phone conversation? I would really dearly love to sit down and talk to you a little bit about what's going on behind the scenes if you would grant me an audience. Would you send me a text at 573-319-1586 and say, Augie, give me a call, and I'll do it. Give me some days and times. Jimmy, Joe, Patty, I know we've spoken. Barney, we've talked. Urs, Mommy, we might have spoken on the phone back when you were in the States. But for those who have not had a phone conversation with me, an intimate private phone call with AP, why don't you send me your phone number, 573-319-1586. Send me some days and times to call because there are just certain things that we can't accomplish if we don't speak to one another back and forth. I need to hear your voice. You know what mine sounds like, so you know it's me. Send me a text, guys, 573-319-1586. Say, Augie, give me a call, and we're going to talk about the future of the For Liberty Network and how we're going to build it together, all of us, every one of us. If you watch the Wake Up America show, if you're an Itchy McGroin, right, or you're a Relaxium McGroin, then I want to talk to you guys. I just think that we'll build a freer country if we actually do what it takes to do it, right? We have to step forward together. We have to clasp hands, strong handshake, and make it work. At a minimum, click the like button. Rise and freedom. It's Wednesday, February the 11th, 2026. We're witnessing the final dying breaths of the communist experiment in the Caribbean. Wake up, America. The Wall Street Journal confirmed that Cuba is grinding to a total halt. under a crippling U.S. oil blockade. Airlines are canceling flights. Hotels are shutting down. The airport doesn't have jet fuel to fuel jets. That means jets can't land, jets can't leave. The Cuban authorities are furloughing workers because they literally have no power to keep the lights on. The last oil shipment arrived over a month ago. And now that the Trump administration has toppled Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, the Cuban vampire has lost its primary blood supply. President Trump's January 29th executive order has declared Cuba an extraordinary threat, and the message to the world is clear. If you sell oil to the Castro regime, you're cut off from the American market. So this isn't just a shortage. This is going to be the collapse of a slave state that has survived for 60 years on the generosity of other totalitarians. The end is not just near, the end is here. Wake up, America. We've been lied to for decades by Ivy League academics and Hollywood pedo elites who wear the face of Che Guevara on their t-shirts. They call him a secular saint, but the historical record reveals a cold-blooded executioner. Che Guevara famously described himself as a cold-killing machine, guided by pure hate for his enemies. He wasn't a liberator. He was the architect of the La Cabana prison firing squad, where he personally saw the execution of hundreds of Cubans without trial. And let's talk about Fidel Castro, the man who turned the Pearl of the Antilles into a prison island before the revolution. Before the revolution, Cuba had a higher per capita income than much of Europe. But Castro nationalized every small business, every farm, and every individual's dream. He turned a productive people into a nation of bicycle riders eating banana peels to survive. The revolution was never about the people. It was about the pure, unadulterated power of a rotten clique of Marxist thugs.
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Itchy McGroin says, dude, thank you for the offer. Trying to figure out a good time. Appreciate the offer. Stand by. Not today. Doesn't have to be today, brother. Can be anytime in the near future. Just send me a text. Says we need to take over Cuba, too. I bet there's a lot of ex-Cubans in Florida that would be happy to lead that country. Amen. Let's see it. Let's see Cuba fall. Liberty in our lifetimes. Wake up, America. The Cuban crisis is the ultimate proof. Socialism is a death cult. By 1970, Cuban sugar production had fallen to levels lower than the 1950s, and worker absenteeism was over 30% because there was no incentive to work for a government that steals your wages. The Castro regime survived for 30 years on an $8 billion annual subsidy from the Soviet Union. And when the Soviets folded, Cuba folded. They turned to tourist apartheid, where foreigners eat steak in luxury hotels while native Cubans are barred from the premises and subsist on rations of rice and beans. Today, a liter of milk costs 1,600 pesos and a package of chicken is 2,000. But the average state salary is less than $10 a month. This is the equity that the left wants for you. Equal misery, equal starvation, and equal submission to the state. The UN is warning of a humanitarian crisis, but the crisis isn't the blockade. The crisis is the communism that strangled the island long before the oil ran out. Wake up, America. There is a sinister connection between the Cuban collapse and the anti-natalist lies we see today. The Castro regime has long used doctors as human exports, forcing them to work overseas in Brazil and Venezuela while taking 75% of their wages. 8 of these doctors recently filed a lawsuit in Miami for forced labor. For cash, the nation is dying from within. The Cuban population is shrinking and aging because young people would rather risk their lives on a balsas in the Florida Straits than raise a child in a Caribbean gulag. It is the same cultural Marxism we discussed earlier, telling the people the individual is nothing, the collective is everything. They've destroyed the family unit to make the state the only father. And now that the state is broke, their nation has no future. The left in America tells us not to have kids to save the planet, but in Cuba, they stopped having kids because the state destroyed the earth. Wake up, America. Every tyranny breeds heroes, and the heroes in Cuba are the dissidents who brave the rapid response brigades to demand freedom. I'm talking about figures like Jose Daniel Ferrer, leader of the Unpack U, who's been beaten, detained, and tortured for the crime of asking for a fair vote. I'm talking about the ladies in white, mothers and wives who march in silence every Sunday to demand the release of political prisoners. These heroes prove that the human spirit cannot be crushed by 349, which requires artists to seek permission before they can even paint or sing. The green monsters of the left want you to believe that Cuba is a model of sustainability because they don't have cars. But the Cuban people know the truth. They aren't sustainable. They're suffocating. While this is happening, though, the heroes of liberty are rising. And those heroes of liberty are looking to finally snap the chains of the Castro legacy. And guess who's leading the charge? That's right, ya boy AP. Introducing Cafecito Libre and the Malay Revolution. So we're going to finish this epic takedown with a promise of liberation. Wake up, America. All of the Americas. The Wake Up America's For Liberty Network is not just reporting on the fall of communism. We are accelerating it. That's where your Rumble rants are going, Drew Van Runkle. Call 1-900-4-LIBERTY, $9.99 a minute for steamy revolutionary talk. Hey, man, I give this away for free. On Fridays, though, we go paywalled. So we are proud to announce our brand new show. We've been working on it for months now. Cafecito Libre, starring the incredible Mylene Salabari, who escaped from the clutches of Cuban communism, made it to Europe, managed to become an American citizen, came to the United States, became an American libertarian. She will be our bilingual voice for liberty. Cuba, Venezuela, Argentina. We're making moves over here, and that's what we're going to talk about when you guys send me your text phone numbers and tell me good times to give you a call. The incredible Mylene Salabarria, born in Cuba, made in the USA, a lawyer who escaped the indoctrination mills to become a relentless advocate for natural rights. Cafecito Libre is going to be the For Liberty Network's bridge to the Latin American world, bringing the potent, chainsaw-wielding libertarianism of Javier Milei to the United States. We're going to take on the Costa from Havana to Buenos Aires. Milei has shown us that you can hack the public sector, shut down the banks, run a fiscal surplus by simply telling the collectivists, afuera! The fall of Cuba is the prelude to a potential libertarian nationalist revolution across our entire hemisphere. We are reclaiming the Caribbean. We are reclaiming South America. And we are starting right here. The arena is expanding. The coffee is brewing. The era of the Costa is over. Rise and freedom, America. The future is Libre. What say you, people? What say you? Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Do you want to see more of this? Do you know when you subsidize something that you get more of it? Stop subsidizing the government. Stop giving your money to Starbucks. They hate you. They hate your values. I love you and love your values. I'm fighting for America, damn it. It's still real to me, damn it. Libertarian nationalism. Are you going to come? I'm going to come. No! Kiss me, I'm libertarian. Wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if Milei, freed Cuba? Yeah, you're damn right it would. It would be cool. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're not just talking about liberty on the For Liberty Network. We're helping make it happen. Yes. Yeah, we're activists. We do shit here at the For Liberty Network. Help us do shit. Get some awesome merch at the same time. Head over to forlibertyshop.com right now. Visit the Grift Shop. And when you go to the griftshop.com, you see our Kiss Me I'm Libertarian t-shirts. Those are so cute. Whenever you buy a Kiss Me I'm Libertarian shirt, it comes with your own sweetheart, smoking hot, redheaded libertarian girl or boy, if that's your thing. Head over to forlibertyshop.com, buy a box of Founding Flavors coffee. We will be right back. Enjoy the bonus content. I got one last big send-off to say, one last big monologue. 1-900 Talk. It's the Wake Up America show, and you're watching the For Liberty Network.
Jimmy Lai got a 20-year sentence for saying things. The Chinese government didn't like China's national security law, was perfectly tailored to zero in on someone like Lai, who vigorously pushed for democracy, freedom of speech, and government reform in Hong Kong. There's a reason Thanksgiving predictably gives way to yearly advice columns on how to placate the crazy uncle who somehow finds a way to make mashed potatoes political. In the US, criticizing the government is a national pastime, whether in polite conversation, on social media, or across the dinner table. In China, meanwhile, it can amount to a life sentence. Such is the case of Jimmy Lai, the 78-year-old Chinese political dissident who was sentenced on Monday to 20 years imprisonment following his conviction last year on 2 counts of conspiring to collude with foreign forces and 1 count of publishing seditious material. That rap sheet sounds ominous. It is, but not in the way it reads. The portentous language of the charges masks that he was ultimately found guilty of exercising a basic right, railing against the state. There is no shortage of material in China for government critics. That helps explain why, in 2020, the mainland imposed a national security law on Hong Kong, where Lai made his home. He was arrested that same year. The name of the legislation is again deceptive, as it used national security as a guise to paralyze dissent, especially as some in the city sought to hold on to the liberties that once distinguished Hong Kong from Beijing. Lai was at the forefront of that fight. It is genuinely difficult to think of anyone whose story more clearly epitomizes both the promise of Hong Kong and what happens when that promise is broken. At 12 years old, Lai escaped to the city as a stowaway on a fishing boat after his mother was sent to work in a labor camp for the crime of being a class enemy. He slept in rat-infested factories as a garment worker, until he was the one running them. His sweater brand Giordano became an international success and helped make Lai a billionaire. Following the 1989 pro-democracy showdown in Tiananmen Square in Beijing, Lai founded 2 media companies, Next Magazine in 1990 and the Apple Daily in 1995, known for their irreverent coverage and unapologetic support for democracy, freedom of speech, and government reform. China's national security law was, in other words, perfectly tailored to zero in on someone like Lai. The government leveraged it to freeze assets at the Apple Daily, arrest other employees, and eventually shutter it entirely. Prosecutors alleged Lai spearheaded a conspiracy to secure sanctions or blockades against China and Hong Kong, referencing meetings he had with U.S. officials like Vice President Mike Pence and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Authorities obtained a conviction on the 3rd count, publishing seditious material, using colonial-era legislation to argue that Lai's publication incited people to rebel against the government. Beyond the charges themselves, that national security law also paved the way for a trial with a foregone conclusion. Calling it a trial at all feels like a bit of a stretch, as it had no jury and was instead overseen by a panel of judges handpicked by the government. Nor was Lai permitted to pick an attorney of his choosing, which the Constitution there supposedly promises. All in all, the proceedings came amid a long-standing, ruthless pursuit of the businessman and activist, who was already serving a nearly 6-year sentence on flimsy fraud charges pertaining to a sublease for part of his newspaper office. But for those who still doubt that Lai was targeted for his political expression, consider that he has company. Former Apple Daily editor-in-chief Law Wai Kwong, executive editor-in-chief Lam Man Chung, and English edition managing editor Feng Wai Kong received 10-year sentences. Young Ching Ki, an editorial writer, received 7 years and 3 months. Associate publisher Chan Pui Man got 7 years. And CEO and publisher Chung Kim Hung was handed 6 years and 9 months. This, unfortunately, isn't new. There are many others who have received draconian punishments for offending the Chinese government. Lai had an advantage, however. He is a citizen of the United Kingdom, meaning he did not have to do this. He did not have to wait for law enforcement to come and take him, which was essentially guaranteed. And yet he continued to speak out against the government with the same vigor as those whose greatest risk is an unpleasant dinner.
Breaking news, a trans shooter who carried out one of the worst school shootings in Canadian history at Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, killing 9 people, has been identified as 17-year-old Jesse Strang, who began transitioning at age 15 and who is also on heavy doses of SSRIs. Rise and Freedom America. It's Wednesday, February the 11th, 2026. We're breaking the seal on a horror story from the North that the corporate media is already trying to sanitize. Wake up, America. Yesterday, February 10th at approximately 1:20 p.m., the small town of Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia was ripped apart by Canada's deadliest school shooting in nearly 40 years. 9 innocent lives are gone. 9 innocent lives, 10 total, including the killer. 27 more are wounded after a rampage that started at a private residence and ended in the hallways of Tumbler Ridge Secondary School. The RCMP found 6 bodies inside the school, 2 more at a connected home, and 1 victim died en route to the hospital. This wasn't just an incident, it was an execution-style spree in a town of only 2,400 people. And while the media uses the absurd term gun person to describe the killer, I'm going to give you the cold, hard, unvarnished facts they're too afraid to print. Wake up, America. The radical left is already scrambling to protect the narrative over the bodies of the children, of course. While police initially issued an alert describing the suspect as a female in a dress with brown hair, they have since clammed up on the details. But we have the receipts. 2 Canadian news outlets, Western Standard and Juno News, have identified the killer as 18-year-old Jesse Strang. And here's the part they don't want you to know. Sources close to the family confirmed that Jesse Strang was transgender. Juno News has revealed a YouTube account belonging to Strang that proudly displays the transgender flag and uses the pronouns she, her. The killer died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound after turning a seemingly safe community into a war zone. This is the deadly reality of a radicalized individual latching on to a fragile identity to justify the unthinkable. Wake up, America. We have to connect the dots because the establishment media sure as hell isn't going to do it. So we're going to do it here in the last 15 minutes of the Wake Up America show. It's time to get busy. $80 people watching. Don't forget to click the like button as well if you enjoy breaking news on your live streams and full, thorough examinations while it's happening. So we're going to connect the dots here. We're witnessing a pattern of violent, radicalized outbursts from the fringes of the transgender movement. Just 5 months ago, on September 10th, 2025, we all watched in horror as the voice of a generation, Charlie Kirk, was assassinated in broad daylight at Utah Valley University. The killer, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, was a left-wing fanatic who had recently subscribed to radical ideologies and expressed a desire to take out Kirk because he, quote, spread too much hate. Ironic. Robinson had recently adopted a radical leftist worldview operating in the darkest corners of Reddit and gaming culture. The assassination was the logical conclusion of a media machine that labels conservative debate as violence, creating a permission structure for murder. From Kirk in Utah to the students in British Columbia, the targets change, but the radicalized profile remains the same. Wake up, America. If you want to understand the why, you have to look at the Covenant School massacre in Nashville. In March 2023, Audrey Hale, a biological female who identified as a transgender male, murdered 3 children and 3 adults at a Christian elementary school. The final police report released in April 2025 revealed Hale had plotted the attack for years. Obsessed with gaining notoriety and superiority, she was a supremacist. A white supremacist. Hale targeted the school because she believed the Christian faith would make the victims meek and afraid. She raged in her diaries about white privilege, her white privilege, and her hatred for the American people. She wanted to serve as an inspiration for others who were mentally disordered like her to commit attacks. This is the green monster of cultural Marxism, weaponizing mental illness, turning disorder into destiny, and targeting the very foundations of Western civilization. Wake up, America. We're not allowed to talk about the correlation between the surge in gender dysphoria and the rise in violence, but the data is screaming at us. From Audrey Hale in Nashville to Tyler Robinson in Utah to Jesse Strang now in Tumbler Ridge, we are seeing individuals struggling with profound mental disorder being fed a steady diet of victimhood and radical resistance. It's poison. Poison the left is pouring into the ears of these people. In Canada, the authorities are already trying to bury the motive, with Superintendent Ken Floyd saying they may struggle to determine the why. Really? The why? It's stretched across every radical transgender forum, every left-wing newsroom, every Reddit thread. They're being told that the world is genociding them, so they feel justified in genociding the world. We have to stop treating mental illness as a protected political category and start treating it as the crisis it is. If we don't snap out of this delusion, the constitutional ice age will be the least of our worries. So let's finish this epic takedown with a call to action. Wake up, America. The media is going to try and scrub Jesse Strang from the internet. They're going to try and pretend the Charlie Kirk assassination was a fluke or lie and say he was MAGA. Right? They're going to try and keep the Covenant Manifesto under lock and key as long as they can. But the For Liberty Network and the Wake Up America show, we are the light in the darkness. We are exposing on this show the rotten core of the administrative state that subsidizes this kind of decay and mental illness. We're going to reclaim our schools from the radicals. We're going to reclaim our streets from the fanatics. We're going to reclaim our tax dollars from the Somali terrorists and scammers. Don't forget, this Wake Up America show is not just a news network. We're a radical activist organization of our own. Thank you to everyone who supports the Wake Up America show. Thank you for everyone being a part of the For Liberty Network. You will soon be able to say you knew us when in the early days. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. If we've not had a conversation on the phone, it's time. Give me a call or send us a text. Tell me some good times and days that I can call, and we will have a personal conversation about what we can do to save our country. Thank you for everything that you do for us. Even if you just click the like button, even if you just watch the show and comment, everybody is part of the cool kids train on this network. Thank you so much. Don't forget to exit through the Griff Shop at forlibertyshop.com. Today's Wednesday, which means tonight, Liberty Tonight. Don't forget, Brian Piotr, the man with the plan, rumble.com/Liberty Tonight. We'll see you guys on the Wake Up America show, specifically tomorrow, right back here again, 7 a.m. Central. It's the Wake Up America show. And what network is that on, guys? Huh?
Jimmy Lai got a 20-year sentence for saying things. The Chinese government didn't like China's national security law, was perfectly tailored to zero in on someone like Lai, who vigorously pushed for democracy, freedom of speech, and government reform in Hong Kong. There's a reason Thanksgiving predictably gives way to yearly advice columns on how to placate the crazy uncle who somehow finds a way to make mashed potatoes political. In the US, criticizing the government is a national pastime, whether in polite conversation, on social media, or across the dinner table. In China, meanwhile, it can amount to a life sentence. Such is the case of Jimmy Lai, the 78-year-old Chinese political dissident who was sentenced on Monday to 20 years imprisonment following his conviction last year on 2 counts of conspiring to collude with foreign forces and 1 count of publishing seditious material. That rap sheet sounds ominous. It is, but not in the way it reads. The portentous language of the charges masks that he was ultimately found guilty of exercising a basic right, railing against the state. There is no shortage of material in China for government critics. That helps explain why, in 2020, the mainland imposed a national security law on Hong Kong, where Lai made his home. He was arrested that same year. The name of the legislation is again deceptive, as it used national security as a guise to paralyze dissent, especially as some in the city sought to hold on to the liberties that once distinguished Hong Kong from Beijing. Lai was at the forefront of that fight. It is genuinely difficult to think of anyone whose story more clearly epitomizes both the promise of Hong Kong and what happens when that promise is broken. At 12 years old, Lai escaped to the city as a stowaway on a fishing boat after his mother was sent to work in a labor camp for the crime of being a class enemy. He slept in rat-infested factories as a garment worker, until he was the one running them. His sweater brand Giordano became an international success and helped make Lai a billionaire. Following the 1989 pro-democracy showdown in Tiananmen Square in Beijing, Lai founded two media companies, Next Magazine in 1990 and The Apple Daily in 1995, known for their irreverent coverage and unapologetic support for democracy, freedom of speech, and government reform. China's national security law was, in other words, perfectly tailored to zero in on someone like Lai. The government leveraged it to freeze assets at the Apple Daily, arrest other employees, and eventually shutter it entirely. Prosecutors alleged Lai spearheaded a conspiracy to secure sanctions or blockades against China and Hong Kong, referencing meetings he had with U.S. officials like Vice President Mike Pence and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Authorities obtained a conviction on the third count, publishing seditious material, using colonial-era legislation to argue that Lai's publication incited people to rebel against the government. Beyond the charges themselves, that national security law also paved the way for a trial with a foregone conclusion. Calling it a trial at all feels like a bit of a stretch, as it had no jury and was instead overseen by a panel of judges handpicked by the government. Nor was Lai permitted to pick an attorney of his choosing, which the Constitution there supposedly promises. All in all, the proceedings came amid a long-standing, ruthless pursuit of the businessman and activist, who was already serving a nearly 6-year sentence on flimsy fraud charges pertaining to a sublease for part of his newspaper office. But for those who still doubt that Lai was targeted for his political expression, consider that he has company. Former Apple Daily Editor-in-Chief Law Wai Kwong, Executive Editor-in-Chief Lam Man Chung, and English Edition Managing Editor Feng Wai Kong received 10-year sentences. Young Ching Ki, an editorial writer, received 7 years and 3 months. Associate publisher Chan Pui Man got 7 years, and CEO and publisher Chung Kim Hung was handed 6 years and 9 months. This, unfortunately, isn't new. There are many others who have received draconian punishments for offending the Chinese government. Lai had an advantage, however. He is a citizen of the United Kingdom, meaning he did not have to do this. He did not have to wait for law enforcement to come and take him, which was essentially guaranteed. And yet he continued to speak out against the government with the same vigor